What's up, everybody? It's Catfish on Ice. It's episode 257 with Chad Minton, Max Greenberg, and an extra co-host tonight. It's our old friend Boyd Farish, feature writer for Penalty Box Radio. It's been a while since he's been on the show. It's great to have him, and there's a lot to talk about. Boyd, how are you doing, man? First of all, how's the season treating you?
Man, I'm doing great. Staying busy, Lots of things to pay attention to,
Are you as close going on? Are you as close to the jumping off ledge as some of these other fans I come across on social media?
I mean, I think by nature of writing about the team, like I have to stay off of the ledge generally. Yes. But, I mean, it's all about whether you can see a plan coming together. I know there's, a lot of commentary out there that, maybe Barry Trotz doesn't quite know what he's doing. And, it remains to be seen, but there are elements there that you can see kind of the short and long term. It's just, will he make the moves to make it all work? But, I'm not off the ledge just yet.
For sure. All right. So, yeah, Boyd is a feature writer for Penalty Box Radio. He's been covering this team a long time. We love having him on the show. He's a good friend of ours. And then, of course, Max, how you doing, man? You've got to cover the Titans and the Predators at the same time.
Hey, they're on the clock, baby. Number one overall pick.
Max, I got to ask you, what did you do to deserve this? You got to cover the Preds and the Titans at the same time.
I chose when I was younger. I stayed to the point where it was too far gone, and I can't do anything about it now. It is what it is.
Well, so Max is going to definitely give us Titans time to wrap up this episode, as we try to do at least once a week. And we got to do Titans time this week because, I mean, the team just got the first overall pick. Their first time they've had the first overall pick since they took the great Earl Campbell. So we got that.
That's not true, actually. They they had it back in 2016, but we traded it to the Rams when they took Jared Goff that year.
Okay, so I guess I should reword that is the first time they have a chance to make the first overall.
Well, that's no guarantee they make the pick this time, but again, we'll get into all that when we talk Titans time.
Thank you for jumping in and fixing me on that, because I did not know that. That's a good – I did not remember that. That's good to know. All right, cool. But let's tell you everything else we got to get into tonight. We are presented by Game Time and DraftKings with our promo codes THPN. So we'll tell you more about those great sponsors later in the show. Please hit subscribe below if you're watching live on YouTube. We've gotten through the holiday break. We went on a little bit of a hiatus on Catfish and Ice. I had to go home and see family. Just came back from Nashville and froze my ass off because I am a Florida guy now. And whenever it drops below 70 degrees, you throw on a hoodie when you get used to living in Florida. So, yeah, I went back to 30 and 40 degrees in Nashville and had to get used to that. But other than that, we are through the holiday break now, and we are going to get back on schedule here with getting you weekly episodes of Catfish and Ice. That is my plan. That is my goal for you guys. Thank you for hanging with us and joining us tonight. We're going to do some Preds burning questions for the rest of the season. We're going to try to answer them. We'll go around the room. Myself, Max, and Boyd will try to answer those burning questions that I have. And it's probably going to send us on plenty of off-ramps and tangents, as it always does. We are going to get to preview back-to-back wins, and impressive back-to-back wins, I should say, for the Predators on the road against the Canucks and against the Flames. Are they finally starting to cook something up here? We're going to get into that. What words? We're going to do our 3 clutch performers of the week, and we're going to tie it into those 2 wins. Who were our 3 most clutch players from those 2 wins? What else do we have to do? The Smashville stat of the week this week, I've got it centered on a graphic, a stat that Jay Fresh in his analytics released. And that is, of course, what we all know, team finishing, and the fact that this team cannot finish to save their life. And even in the wins, these back-to-back wins, you still saw that happen again, like Gus Nyquist missing wide open nets. So we're going to try to break down that stat. Also, expected goal differential is one where the Predators have struggled all year in. So is that bad luck? Is that something we've been waiting all year to say, hey, the puck luck is going to bounce back in their favor? But, I mean, we're at the midway point now. So that shit might have sailed. Also, which prospect has impressed us the most? Because one thing we can say about this season is we have seen plenty of prospects play on the NHL level. Some of these guys we did not even expect to see this season, and they're making big impacts already. So we're going to break down a bunch of the prospects. Also, how about Teddy Stiga hitting the game-winning goal?
Yeah.
Gold medal goal for Team USA, back-to-back World Junior champions. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And you already see the shade coming from fans of Team Canada saying, "Oh, how cute you went back-to-back." I think the World Hockey Report podcast put out, "Oh, how cute that you went back-to-back." It's like, stop being salty. Stop being salty. We don't need that saltiness from Team Canada right now. Let us enjoy our gold
Let's
medal.
be fair. If Team Canada doesn't pull themselves together, it might be a lot more than 2.
And
or
at
the very least, it's going to be a lot more than 2 that they won't win.
And I'll also be very fair in saying that Team Canada's roster construction was a little questionable. They were not a lot of they're really getting hammered to the wall here that they did not put necessarily the best players they had available on their roster. But with that said, that's what we got to get into tonight, guys. So let's get into it. And we're going to give our guest Boyd the floor first here. Of course, because we're going to be a hospitable host here, me and Max are. And we are going to first, in our opening face-off tonight, break down the back-to-back wins. What worked? Can they keep this up? So, Boyd, how about you first start with what worked? What has you encouraged moving forward from those, other than the obvious fact that they won? But, like, what did they do in these games to finally give us some winning results here?
I mean, yeah, let's be fair. Winning matters. So does collecting points. Not to be a little bit too obvious off the jump, but I mean, when you're trying to get your offense in order and get things moving and finding that flow, you got to have goaltending. And Saros and Onanen were absolutely lights out.
They were.
I mean, they were stopping breakaways. They were just smothering everything up. I mean, they were on top of it. And, just seeing how the two of them performed, it gave, good Lord, especially in the Calgary game where they got absolutely dog walked in the first period. And the only reason that they were able to take a lead is that Onanen was just on top of it. So, I think, it's kind of obvious, but it must be stated first. The flowers that I'm going to give have to go to the goalies.
Absolutely. I am so pumped about what Justus Onanen is showing for us right now. The fact that we got younger at the position, we've effectively made at least atoned for our sins of losing Yaroslav Askarov by getting Justus Onanen. It's the pain of losing Yaroslav Askarov has really, really been lowered, and we can kind of live with it now because we've got Justus Onanen. I mean, because that guy, he's like he complements UC Saros so well too, because he's like such a physical brick wall, and he's such a different style goalie than Saros, but they're both just so effective at how they play. And what's cool about we have no goalie controversy anymore. I mean, we know Onanen is the backup, but he is a very trustworthy backup. It sucked to lose Kevin Lankinen, but it made sense why we did. He wanted to be a starter somewhere else, and look at what Lankinen's doing. And we just saw him against the Canucks. He equally had a really great game going head to head with Saros in that first back-to-back win. So, I mean, out of all of the bad things that have happened this year so far, I mean, to have goalie 1 and goalie 2 set right now, Big Juice, Little Juice, Juice 2.0, whatever we want to call the nickname for the duo here, it's pretty awesome. Max, what about you, man? What else besides the goalies really stood out to you?
I mean, obviously the goaltending was really good, but you don't allow 1 goal in 2 games unless you also play good defense. And the Preds were battling, they were getting the pucks in their own zone, doing everything good to sell out to preserve the wins in both games. you got to tip your hat to that. Also, and maybe not so much in the Vancouver game, but the Calgary game was one of the games you can say they won the special teams battle hands down. 2 power play goals. They get penalty kill was great as usual, and that really propelled the victory in Calgary that night.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then, of course, Ryan O'Reilly gets the hat trick. Good to see him do that. I mean, watching Ryan O'Reilly, I mean, you can tell this guy is not used to this. And, after the season he had last year and after the season, like the top line with that was constructed with Nyquist and Forsberg and how that got broken up so fast. And, Nyquist, as you always said, Max, was probably going to regress. That was kind of we kind of saw it coming.
Right.
But Ryan O'Reilly he remains the factor. He's the factor. I mean, when he's out there, I mean, he just makes so many things work. I mean, and I know that I've even brought up, like, no one is untradeable at this point, even Ryan O'Reilly. And I stand by that because his trade value is high. He's probably the highest trade value on the team if you're talking about realistic trade candidates. But I will say this, I understand why people would never want to lose this guy because, I mean, he's such a team player. He's a coach on the ice. He is captain material. If this team was looking for a captain, and I'm not saying Roman Josi shouldn't be captain, that's all I'm trying to say. But he is like another captain on the team. He's just so I'm happy to see him get the hat trick. Gets a power play goal against Calgary. Gets 2 power play goals.
Yeah, he had them both.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Fedor Svechkov gets a goal. Awesome to see him get on the score sheet. We're going to talk about which prospect is impressing us the most so far. But Svechkov gets his 3rd goal of the year. The confidence just seems to be growing more and more by the game. So that's awesome to see. He obviously stands out. And then just like what Boyd said, I mean, the goaltending, this team always stands by their goaltending, and it's been overshadowed this year because the team for the longest time could not figure out ways to score. And it seems like they're finally starting to figure out ways to score more consistently. So hopefully the goaltenders are going to start getting some goal support. That's obviously going to lead to more 2-point victories in the standings. And we'll see if they can gradually start climbing the ladder in the standings again. But I'm about to pull up that Calgary game. I just want to look at some of the numbers there. But Boyd, you were talking about how so many guys are on IR right now. And so it is really impressive that the Predators are able to get back-to-back wins when they're having to just really blend this starting lineup right now. You got Vinny Hinostroza out there. You've got Ozzy Weisblatt making his such a cool story. We got to talk about Ozzy for a second, guys. How about Boyd, talk about Ozzy and just how cool that's been, man. Like with hearing the story about his mother and the sign language part of it, but just he's obviously way ahead of schedule. No one could have expected him to be necessarily playing NHL hockey, but with everything that's gone on this year, you're seeing all these guys get their opportunities. And that's kind of like a silver lining to how this season's gone, is we are getting to see some really cool stories for some of these prospects.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that maybe hasn't heard the story, I mean, so Ozzy grew up in a home with a single mother who is also deaf. So the whole family communicates in sign language. Him and I believe 4 siblings. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm getting that wrong. But from across all of the siblings in that family, they have all said of just how much, she made so many sacrifices to help them. I mean, even just tonight, we saw Tanner Molendyke get traded to Medicine Hat, where he's going to play with Ozzy's younger brother. Mm-hmm. So, all of these kids that are, trying to get to live out their dream and learn what they get to do in life. And she made enormous sacrifices for them, especially as a single parent, and being able to experience that moment for Ozzy getting called up in Vancouver, in his hometown, also in Calgary, where he spent a large portion of his younger career as well. I mean, it's always cool moments when you get to see the kids that finally get to live out their dream and also recognize their parents and family. We absolutely saw earlier this year with Zach LaRue as well, as his family came into town and like followed the team for 2 weeks as they traveled around the US to different teams or for various road cities. But yeah, just a really cool story of a parent doing whatever it takes for their child to or their children in this case to be able to live out their dreams. And then on sort of an ancillary note, as it turns out, what a great trade by Barry Trotz.
Yeah, Igor Afanasyev for
moving Igor Afanasyev, who I don't think he even reported to training camp. He went straight to Europe.
No, he was at KHL. Literally, he was confirmed going there a week after that trade happened.
Yeah. Wild. And Weissblatt, makes his NHL debut this year. Now, granted, I think we would all say that was not the plan, but
it was not the plan necessarily. But Weissblatt did really stand out in training camp. I remember that, and he's a wrecking ball, kind of like LaRue is. He plays with his hair on fire. He's aggressive. He's getting very manageable ice time in his first 2 games. I think he had less than 10 minutes the first game. He gets up to 10:41 of ice time. We got the stats on the screen for all of our YouTube and Facebook watchers right now. But I'm just kind of overlooking the box score. And you see Forsberg piles on another couple of assists. I think his goal drought is up to 18 games now?
18.
Which is just mind-boggling. Can't even
I think he has – what does he have, 20 assists in those 18 games?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's not doing things, but it's just so crazy to see. And I kind of dove into it a little bit more, like what's going, like just some underlying numbers, and obviously shooting percentages down. You would expect that, but he's also actually shooting a lot less per game than he was last year as well. And much like the rest of the team, he's missing the net a lot on his shot attempts. I think we all can agree it's a matter of time before the sleeping giant, or whatever you want to call it, wakes up, and he didn't just magically forget how to score goals. I mean, so it's going to come together for him. It's just a matter of when it happens. But it is crazy to see 18-game goal drought for Forsberg. But looking more at the numbers here, Shvechkov gets a goal and an assist. You got O'Reilly, of course, with the hat trick. Stamkos gets an assist in the game. Marchessault gets an assist. Of course, Marchessault is just where was this to start the season? But he's on a really long streak of piling up points and like pretty much every game. And so, Max, what kind of stands out from the box score other than O'Reilly's hat trick? What are some individual performances from this Flames game? Because I think that was the one that was like really, I was questioning it. Like, what this Preds team has done to us this year is they'll mix in an impressive win every now and then. Like they beat Winnipeg once upon a time this year. They've beaten some good teams this year in random moments, but then they can't follow it up with another game. Steven Stamkos has spoken about that in post-game interviews about how we just can't, for whatever reason, we have not figured out how to roll over multiple games of good performances. They finally did it, and it's on a back-to-back, which makes it even more impressive. But yeah, Max, who else is really fueling the back-to-back wins?
I mean, I looked at it as a big team effort. Honestly, if I were to go back, and I've been pounding this drum the whole time, it's like your top line, your top producers seem to keep humming along. Maybe not so much in the Calgary game, but in the Vancouver game, even a low-scoring game, that top line, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, still gets a goal. I mean, and I remember Boyd tweeted out something this morning saying like they're like a big part of and I've been talking about this too. They've been a big part of the reason why this team has kind of turned it around a little bit over the month. It hasn't been perfect, and there's still some questions, but that top line unquestionably has helped this team. And this team's, at least from an offensive standpoint, is without question better off than they were, a month or two ago.
And how Boyd was talking about earlier, look at that shots on goal by period. Nashville was only able to get 4 shots on goal that first period against Calgary. Calgary put up 11, so Justus Onanen held down the fort until Nashville really showed up in a big way in the second period, with 14 shots, and that's when the game really started coming to them. That's when O'Reilly broke through, was in the second period. But then you look at special teams. I mean, Nashville goes 2 for 2 on the power play. Calgary goes 0 for 3. I mean, look at the block shots, guys. 30-6. Are you kidding me? In block shots. Talk about a team effort there that Max was just talking about. 30 block shots. So you're also helping your goalie a ton with that. So yeah, that's arguably, I can call the Flames win against the Flames arguably their best win of this. I know they don't have a lot of wins this year. We'd like them to have a lot more, but I would call that maybe their most impressive win of the year, just because it did come on the back end of a back-to-back on the road. And just looking at these numbers, what do you think, Boyd?
Well, now that you've asked, I'm looking at the schedule to see.
There's not a lot. You don't have a lot to choose from, but
I still think the best performance, in my opinion, was probably that game in Dallas. I
was just looking at that one.
I think that one's a pretty hard one to top.
I mean, they were pretty much beginning to end the better team in that game, which is been pretty rare. I mean, they also did beat Winnipeg 4-1 earlier in the year.
I would have said the same against the Carolina game if they didn't have those few minutes where they nearly blew it.
But let's be honest, guys. We can't be picky right now about wins. We'll take every ugly win we can take right now.
Right.
But there was nothing ugly about that back-to-back. And then, of course, it's always sweet when you beat Vancouver. And I saw they've won 4 in a row at Rogers Center, dating back to the playoffs last year.
I was thinking about that today, actually.
And everyone knows. We might have some, no offense to Canucks fans, but all I hear around fan circles around the league is that Canucks fans are some of the most insufferable fans. And so it is sweet to go in there and beat them again. Guys, we're going to go on an off ramp right now. A lot's happened. We haven't had an episode in a while, but I got to throw this in there now that we're talking about the Canucks. Elias Pettersson, do you guys see him getting traded, or do you think that what's going on with the rift with him and management will get figured out? The GM's just kind of bluffing right now. I mean, the guy's in year 1 of a massive contract he just signed. I mean, he is the franchise center. I know he doesn't show up in the playoffs sometimes, and sometimes people accuse him of being kind of a made of glass a little bit. He seems to get hurt at the worst times, but he is still a dynamic elite 1C in this league. I cannot for the life of me ever see the Canucks actually following through and trading him, but it's got a lot of traction out there. There's a lot of insiders who are saying there is something to this, including Elliot Friedman.
Yes.
So Max, how about we start with you? Let's kind of touch on that, because I did write an article about it. It got a ton of responses. I wasn't even predicting it or necessarily saying the Preds should do it. I was just bringing up the fact that the math could make sense because they do have the cap space. And I was just trying to throw something at the wall and just see if it sticks. But start with you first, Max.
Yeah, well, I have actually a pretty big opinion on this. So kind of to correct you a little bit, I don't think the rift is between Elias Pettersson and management. They just signed him to an 8-year extension. The rift is really between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, from what we've heard. Yeah. And it all started. So I remember when the first time the Preds played in Vancouver this year, JT Miller didn't play the entire third period of that game for seemingly no reason. And then 2 days later, they announced he's taking an indefinite leave of absence. And they were obviously asking Rick Tocchet about it, and he gave the answer that a lot of coaches will give. It's like, oh, don't speculate. It's his own thing. And obviously, when you hear that, obviously you want the player to get better for whatever's going on. But you keep hearing stuff like JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. They don't get along. And now you're seeing both their names in trade rumors, and it all comes down to the old saying for me: where there's smoke, there's fire. And I have no choice but to believe the rumors of what's going on in Vancouver at this point. And yeah, I honestly would bet that one of them gets traded, if not both of them.
How about you, Boyd?
Well, I think there's a couple things. If you want to play a game of who's less tradable, JT Miller, I believe, has a no movement clause and an $8 million salary. Elias Pettersson is in year 1 of an $11.6 million contract. So, that's obviously a challenge either way. I mean, if you trade Elias Pettersson, you're not getting Elias Pettersson back. That's a really big challenge. Yeah. Truthfully, if you trade JT Miller, you're probably not getting JT Miller back either. But, given there has been a lot of reported interest for the Rangers in JT Miller, I would say that one's probably more likely. And I think, part of it comes down to, and I was listening to the Steve Dangle podcast earlier, and they were, kind of walking through the situation as well. And one of the challenges for the Canucks right now is they have a really young captain. And, if you would expect that, Roman Josi or Mike Fisher before him or whoever else, if there were this kind of rift happening in the locker room, could step in, grab both players by the collar and say, cut that out. We got to work this out. We got to figure it out. Let's do it. As amazing of a player as Quinn Hughes is, and he may just not have that weight in the locker room with guys who are older. And, so bringing, I think before they kind of make the nuclear choice, which is trading one of their, 5 best players, I think their more likely move is maybe to bring in someone who can help in the locker room. And ironically, on that same Steve Dangle podcast that came out today, the idea that they came up with was none other than Luke Schenn, who is older. He's a cup winner. He's been in Vancouver before. He understands the market. He's one of those players that's beloved by a lot of teams. Hearing them come up with that idea, honestly, it makes a ton of sense. And if you're the Predators, where you've had Willsby, Blankenberg, Stasny, Delgaizo, Ryan Ufko's not that far behind. Looking ahead to next season, almost assuredly Tanner Molendyke's going to be in Nashville. If that opportunity is there
Luke
to
Schenn
make that
very
move.
expendable. I just always figured that Luke Schen's kind of untradeable or unmovable.
That's what I've thought too.
But I mean, as much crap as he gets, he does still serve value in certain areas.
He's a culture guy.
I really do need him to stop firing shots from the blue line that almost always get picked off and end up in a 2-on-1 rush the other way. I'd really like him to stop doing that. But other than that, I mean, I respect the guy. I respect the guy as a leader, his pedigree, all that stuff. But more on Vancouver, though, they're barely hanging on to a wild card spot right now. My only thought process is, if for some reason this team we still got, a couple months before the trade deadline. Let's say this team just really starts tanking. They just really fall down kind of where the Predators are at right now. Let's say they go, I think they're too talented for that to actually happen, but let's just say it does happen. And the drama and the noise keeps getting louder and louder. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to actually trade Pettersson. I just don't. I think JT Miller gets traded before it's Pettersson.
I'd probably agree with that.
But would you make a play? Should the Predators at least, let's say he were to become available. Let's say realistically they're taking realistic phone calls and it's like, okay, this could actually happen. Do you think Barry Trotz should at least do his due diligence and inquire about Pettersson? Because I think he should.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I am 100% always on the side of if elite talent comes available, you try to go get it.
It's not talent that comes around every day.
Yeah,
obviously,
if that's available, I mean, everybody likes to make their, who are the untouchable players. If Elias Pettersson is available, the list of untouchable players is pretty short.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, cool. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that because I've been really thinking about that a lot lately. And they did just play the Canucks, and so I was just kind of wanted to get into that. All right, so let's look ahead, guys, at the rest of January. of course, no game is ever a given in the NHL, and a lot of times you can just throw your previews out the window because any team can beat any team in this league. We know that. That's why we love hockey. But just on paper, at least, the Predators are going to get a little bit of a break in their schedule in terms of just playing teams that aren't quite up as high in the standings. And so maybe this is an opportunity, as the Predators do seem to be turning a corner a little bit, to maybe stack some points. Maybe, I know a lot of fans don't want to hear that because they're already on the embrace the tank right now. I mean, a lot of fans have turned the page and they're thinking top 5 draft pick. I get it. I understand why they feel that way, but we know hockey players aren't built that way, and they're going to play like they can still make this season a special one. And so if the Predators really are starting to cook with something and they're starting to make something happen here and they're starting to click, I think that they've got an opportunity in January to start making up some ground. They got a lot of ground to make up, but they got some opportunities, guys. Max, what do you think? Do you looking at the upcoming schedule, do you see a chance where they could definitely start making up some ground?
I mean, immediately looking at the schedule, it doesn't seem that easy to me. You got Winnipeg coming up, then Washington, Vegas, and Chicago is obviously not a playoff team. They got Minnesota. After that, it gets a little easier. You got San Jose again.
But San Jose is not a walkover either. I mean, they're playing some fun hockey. I know that
That's true.
They're still losing a lot of games, but they're at least losing in exciting fashion.
But in the world of like playoff team versus no playoff team, obviously I mentioned 4 to 5 games against legit playoff teams: Winnipeg, Washington, Vegas, Chicago, Minnesota. Then after that, towards the end of the month, it gets easier. San Jose twice, Anaheim, Vancouver again at home, and then Buffalo's, who's had a terrible year. So again, I think if you can win, a few of those games in the early part of the schedule I just said, you got an opportunity to close out with some easier teams. So yeah, I mean, I think based on how those first 5 games go, you got an opportunity for some optimism, or maybe not.
That Minnesota game is going to be interesting. Of course, we know with LaRue and the whole Slewfoot situation that happened, I've never seen a more split. Like, vast majority of Predators fans are saying it wasn't a Slewfoot. Pretty much everyone else is saying it was a Slewfoot. It was definitely a very dangerous play, but that's how Zachary LaRue plays. Do I think he was maliciously trying to end a guy's season? I don't. I just don't. But his past does not do him any favors. And Max, I know you were talking about that.
Yes.
I saw a tweet you put out where you said that. But 3-game suspension, honestly, I think that's fair.
Yes,
you got to live with the result of the play, and you are responsible for your body, your stick, and what you do on the ice. And when a play ends that way in that scary a fashion, Spurgeon went legs first into the boards. I mean, it was, and then of course our old friend Yakov Trenin got in there and gave LaRue the business, and that guy's going to have a target on him in that Minnesota game. And I just hope that LaRue can, we've always said this, LaRue is one of those players where he's got to figure out a way to walk that fine line. We don't want him to lose all the things that make him what he is, which is a great player. He's got a high motor. He plays like with that intensity level. You don't want him to lose that, because then he's not the player that he needs to play like but he's got to, I don't know, Boyd. Do you think that this has been overblown? I mean, do you think he is responsible for that? And it was a I hate to use the term dirty, but
I mean, I would put it like this. I think the people bringing his past actions into it are sort of losing the story a little bit, because my reaction to that play and using a comparison to something we've seen before. Like, we've seen Brad Marchand actively kick someone's skates out from under them. Like, that is a malicious Slewfoot. In this particular case, they were both going into the boards, going after the puck. Like, I don't think it was intentional. I don't think he was trying to do something malicious. Was it dangerous? Yeah, a little bit. Was it a Slewfoot? Yeah, it was. Was it, but a slew foot is one of those calls that carries a stigma with it. It is a dirty play to try to injure somebody. And I don't think that's what was happening there. I actually think he lost an edge going into the boards, and his feet took out Jared Spurgeon's feet. So penalty, absolutely. Did he deserve to get the game misconduct? Yep. Did he deserve a suspension? Yeah, probably. Was he trying to do something bad? No, I don't think he was.
Yeah. That's
where I'm at. So that's where I think people bringing up his junior career are sort of losing the story a little bit, but it's something he's got to learn from. You can't go into the boards after a puck, trying to stop that hard with a person in front of you, between you and the boards. Yeah. Like, that's just kind of asking for trouble.
Yeah, I think it was just an unfortunate play where he plays that style of game, and he's a young player that just got a little reckless, but and I think he will learn from it, but at the same time, you don't want him to get out there and like overthink things either. Unfortunately, hockey is a very dangerous sport, and bad things unfortunately happen. And since we all agree that we don't think he intentionally, maliciously was trying to break a guy's leg and send him into the boards, it's just an unfortunate thing. I know Wild fans were understandably so all over social media that night saying this guy should be banned. He's a bum. 9 suspensions in his career. I'm like, yeah, they were all in the QMJHL for different reasons, but he's like you said, boy, tying that into this play is just like, what are you doing? Like those have nothing to do with this,
Yeah, the time that he like punched somebody that was behind the boards is not
way different than this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A bit of a different circumstance for sure.
But yeah, looking ahead at January, I think that I look at it, I'm not going to try to like predict each game or anything, but like obviously I think they can get a couple more impressive wins just with the way they're playing right now. I definitely think they can win a couple games where they're going to be underdogs. I could see them maybe winning that Minnesota game. I could see them maybe beating Washington, even though Washington's looking really good this year and their offense is clicking with Ovechkin chasing the Gretzky's goal record. And he's, what is he, like 27 away now, 28, somewhere around there?
24, I think.
Is he down to 24 now? Wow. And that's after missing. I mean, the guy is like, it's just incredible watching him play right now.
Relatively sure he's, in terms of goal pace, he's the best goal scorer in the league right now in terms of goal pace. Like he's having an unbelievable year.
Awesome, man. So yeah, we're gonna get to see OV in Nashville. So that'll be fun.
I'll be at that game.
You'll be at that game, Max?
Yeah, I'll be at that game.
And then we're probably going to see Askarov later this month. So that should be interesting, of course. And then you get Vancouver at home again to go for the three-peat against the team that knocked us out of the playoffs last year. No love lost there. So, let's see what the Predators can do. Let's see if they can just really start making things interesting again. All you can do is play the games, right, guys? I mean, you can't change what happened in the past. You got to move forward here. And so,
I think my biggest thing about the month of January is they actually have a relatively normal schedule. They're not playing like 4 games in 6 nights with 2 back-to-backs. They don't have I'm looking at the calendar right now. They don't have a single game on Sunday or Monday in the entire month, which means they might actually get to, I don't know, practice.
Yeah.
Relevant, for a team that made so many roster changes. And in the first 2.5 months of the season, they barely got to practice because they were playing 4 games a week. So I think where you really might see, sort of specific results aside, is you might see a team that's just more detailed and is making less of the, what we saw earlier in the season where just players are throwing passes into space because they didn't know where their teammate was going to be.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot less of that as you work through January and they have some actual real practice time to work on things like defensive zone breakouts that have really been a challenge this year. So I think that's maybe outside of the results themselves. What you'll see is the impact of the actual schedule in terms of giving them more practice time and just a more consistent pace of games.
They're definitely playing more disciplined as of late. Like I feel like they're playing more connected. And they're opening games a lot better. I know the Calgary game, they were under duress, but I feel like they're definitely, and you got to think, like, I'm not trying to make excuses for this team. They've definitely been a major disappointment so far, but they've lost a lot of close games this year. They've lost a lot of games in overtime. So let's see if their luck turns around a little bit coming up here. Let's tell you about DraftKings, our first sponsor of the night. And of course, we got the NFL playoffs now set. Playoffs, we're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. And right now, the matchups are set for the NFL playoffs next weekend. You got the Chargers at the Texans with a -3 spread in favor of the Chargers, according to DraftKings. You got the Steelers at the Ravens with the Ravens as -10 favorites. And then on Sunday, January 12th, you got the Broncos, who are back in the playoffs for the first time in a while. They're playing at the Buffalo Bills. That's an 8.5-point spread in favor of the Bills. You got the Packers at the Eagles, 4.5-point spread for the Eagles. And the Commanders at the Tampa Bay Bucks. That should be a really good one, and it's a really close spread, -3 in favor of the Bucks. And the Vikings at the Rams, really close spread, the closest spread of the weekend, according to DraftKings. It's a -1.5-point road spread in favor of the Vikings. So that's what DraftKings has in store for you there with the odds and the spreads. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional items, terms, and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Really excited about the NFL playoffs, even though the Titans obviously were very far away from it.
Less stress.
Right?
Yes.
All right, let's start with our burning questions of the night. I've got my questions, and Boyd and Max and myself will answer them. Let's start with will the Preds trade for an impact forward before the trade deadline?
I'm gonna start it.
You want to go, Boyd?
Sure.
Max, if you got it, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll talk because my opinion really hasn't changed. So it's my opinion is on the trade front has been very very similar. Hasn't really changed a whole lot since then. About like a month into the season where we kind of figure out, okay, like the team as it is assembled probably isn't going to work right now. There's not enough speed. There's not enough center depth. Center depth, we might have solved at least temporarily with Stamkos going up to 1 center. So that looks like, at least for this season, it's probably been taken care of. But you still want to get younger in the lineup, and you still probably need some forwards up in your top 6. Obviously, Vinny Hinostroza came down. You don't really want him playing in your top 6. Gus Nyquist obviously not having the same year that he did last year. So it's really a mystery what's going to happen. I know Dylan Cousins has been talked about a lot, and how would he fit into the lineup? That could be interesting. Do you play him? Do you potentially move Stamkos back to winger? Do you potentially, this is a hot take, but I've kind of thought about it. Do you potentially do something like move O'Reilly down to third center? I don't really know what happens there. I think for sure Trotz is going to do something before, the trade deadline or at it. I don't know what it's going to be, especially, but whatever it is, I hope it's getting younger and moves to the long term. Obviously we've talked about not just rentals, but moves that are really going to help for the long term.
Yes, this team does not need to be getting in the business of rentals this year. That would not be a good idea at all.
No.
Real quick, and then we'll get Boyd's answer. But mine is I don't see them trading for anyone earth shattering. I really don't. I think that Trotz realizes kind of where this team is at for this year. He sees that don't have a lot of free agents coming up. Only one. That's nice. So I could see Nyquist definitely being moved, but I don't think you're going to get a huge impact forward in return necessarily. But I do see him trying to stock the cupboard a little bit more for the future, making picks that are long-term moves and not necessarily moves that are going to move the needle so much this current season. I could see that happening for sure. But as far as making a huge, big splash to acquire some big-time player at the deadline, I don't necessarily see that happening. But what about you, Boyd?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of as I'm looking over here is because I'm looking at the Athletics trade board. And yeah, there's just not a lot of people that really fit that bill right now. I mean, there's a couple that might have a year or two left, and have a little bit of usefulness there as maybe a bit of a bridge candidate. But at this point, I don't really see it unless someone like a Dylan Cousins does really become available, or in the bizarro world, the Canucks actually do decide to trade Elias Pettersson.
Huh.
And, outside of that sort of scenario, trading for another player that's going to slot in somewhere in the second and third line, especially like sending assets for someone like that. I was actually a little disappointed they didn't claim Arthur Kaliev, which they definitely could have done. But at this point, I mean, they're pretty much opening spots for guys like Zach Leroux, guys like we'll probably see Joakim Kemmel at some point this season. I think you're more likely to see players moved out and spots opened more than spending significant assets to bring someone in, unless just can't pass that player up does come available sometime towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. Embrace the youth, embrace the development and growth of your prospect pool, and then see what happens in the offseason. The Preds do have a decent amount of cap space to make some moves, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. I don't think this is the season to be doing that right now. What about let's do one with Zachary Leroux. This one's kind of tough. Will Zachary Leroux crack double-digit goals this year? Because I feel like I could see him second half of the season really putting some stuff together and starting to see his offense come alive a little bit more. I'm going to say yes. I think he hits double-digit goals. I think he plays a bigger and bigger role as the season rolls on.
Yeah, I think I'd say yes as well. Assuming that when he returns somewhere in those first few games, he probably goes back to the second line. I mean, I don't think Vinny Hinesters is going to be there long term. Assuming that's the case, I mean, he's got 4 in his first 33 games. I mean, he's got to get 6 in the last 40, basically. If he continues to play significant minutes in the top 6, plus a little bit of power play time, I think he'll get to 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna go out on a limb, but I don't think I've really gone on a limb. I'm gonna say he does it as well. I only see a guy like Zach Leroux getting better, more involved as the season goes on. He's got 4 goals already in 33 games, and I hope he gets back to the top 6. I personally on a contending team, I obviously don't think you want Zach Leroux in your top 6, so the Preds probably aren't as the season has gone on, that's not really going to happen. So I could easily see Zachary LaRue getting to 10 goals if he's given those minutes in the top 6. And I do agree that I think he should get him over Vinny Hinostroza.
Yeah. All right. What about this one? This one, I'm interested to see if we all agree with this one. Will Andrew Brunette make it through next offseason and into next training camp as the head coach of the Nashville Predators?
Yes.
Max, you go first. Or Boyd, you go first.
Yeah,
no, you go, Boyd. Go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think barring like a Vancouver style, like the locker room just falls apart.
So you think even if this team, let's say this team ends up finishing last place in the division, you don't think, no matter where they finish in the standings, you think that Brunette's job is safe for year 3?
I think it would take something outside of just results in the standings.
Gotcha.
Because, Barry Trotz has been very consistent in saying he doesn't want to hang this season on Andrew Brunette. They've already made a bunch of roster swaps. They've had a bunch of injuries. And maybe this is sort of the former coach Barry Trotz thinking of what he wouldn't want a general manager to do to him,
That's
which
a good
is
perspective.
I thought about that too.
Hang a tough season that, don't get me wrong. There have been some coaching decisions that have been questionable, like why it took 30 games to put Steven Stamkos at 1C and leave him there, and why it took injuries to Ryan O'Reilly and Tommy Novak to do it. But no, I think barring some really catastrophic thing, not just the results aren't there on the ice, I think Andrew Brunette will make it the next season.
My answer is going to be that I really can't say at this point. I think I've said before, I don't think Andrew Brunette's the main problem with this team. I've made that clear, although I understand at a certain point, if you just need a new voice, that would make sense. I would probably lean toward, he'll be back because Barry Trotz shown his loyalty to Brunette. And I do agree with what Boyd says that, the old coach and Barry Trotz is going to think of what he would want as a head coach. And I think Brunette's a good hockey coach too. And, obviously he's not perfect. No one really is. And, I could see if this team just completely falls apart, that or just shows really no improvement for the rest of the year, I could potentially see wanting to start fresh. But if I had to say one way or the other, especially if this team even shows some signs of improvement over the course of the year, I do think Andrew Brunette's going to be back to start next year.
I'm not quite as for sure about it as you two are, but I do think he makes it to next season as well, but only because I have a strong optimism that this team is going to show a lot of dramatic improvement in the second half of the season. And I think Trotz is also going to give Brunette the benefit of the doubt in the fact that there has been a lot of roster turnover this year. There are a lot of young, inexperienced players playing in positions we didn't expect them to be playing in. You do got guys on IR, so it's more of an excuse thing at this point. But I think the loyalty is super, super strong between Trotz and Brunette. It's his first head coaching hire as a general manager. Brunette played for Trotz, obviously, in that inaugural season for the Predators, scored the first ever Preds goal. There's just so much loyalty between these two guys. And I could see a scenario where he goes into next season as the head coach, but that's when, if they get off to another really, really bad start next year, I can see a mid-season firing next year for sure. That means you're in year 3. But I think he survives year 2 as well, no matter how bad it might get. But kind of what Max just said, though, if this team is going backwards, like really going backwards, then it wouldn't shock me that much if he got fired in the offseason. He definitely makes it through the season. I don't think he's going to get fired like mid-season.
Yeah, it probably would have happened already if it was going to happen.
Yeah. But, I think we're all in agreement there. I think he is going to the chagrin of a lot of Preds fans probably, he's making it to next training camp for sure.
Well, and I think, too, I mean, you look at kind of everything that Barry Trotz has been doing. He made a bunch of trades at last year's trade deadline, moving some pieces around, acquiring future assets, etc. He signed, obviously, these big name free agents, re-upped Saros, etc., to create this competitive bridge to the younger players that are coming up. So while, signing older players feels like short-term, feels like win now, it is to an extent, but he's still looking at it in terms of a 3 to 5 year window. The moves that he's made this year, in large part, have been moving older players out, bringing younger players in, or clearing space for younger players. And so I think, he really hasn't done much of anything with a right now mentality. So unless something that Andrew Brunette shows him that he can't be a long-term coaching answer, then I see Trotz kind of sticking with him and sticking to the plan, and this sort of, not near and long-term as much as like medium and longer term. And that's where I think there's a little more runway for Andrew Brunette to figure things out, and then especially show that he can develop younger players.
Yeah. All right, let's do the last burning question here, and that is, which prospect has impressed you the most this year? Either still in the minors or they've already made the jump to the NHL, but they're still a prospect. I'm going to start, and I'm going to go with Adam Wilsby for myself. It was tough between Adam Wilsby and Zachary Leroux, but I went with Wilsby just because he looked, from the first shift he played, he looked like a comfortable top 4 NHL defenseman. I mean, I knew he was a good prospect. I heard a lot of people talking about him. I watched a lot of highlight reels with Wilsby, but I mean, this guy's just has it. I mean, he instantly looked like he belonged on the NHL level from the second he got up on the ice. And I can't wait to get this guy back in the lineup. He's on IR right now. But for me, it's been Adam Wilsby has been the most impressive.
I would go ahead, and I would say for me it's a tie. I was going to put Adam Wilsby in there, and my other one, you can debate whether you want to call him a prospect. I'd put Nick Blankenburg in that conversation, dude. He impresses me every night, like a 200-foot player, making plays on the defensive side, chipping in offensively. I noticed him, everywhere in the Calgary and Vancouver games. He had a goal against St. Louis recently that was unbelievable, and he had the overtime winner.
He almost looks like another forward skating out there.
Yeah, exactly. Like Nick Blankenburg is really – it's hard to believe that guy was – I mean, just obviously, I'm not getting too attached to Nick Blankenburg at this point because he was undrafted. He has hopped around from a few teams, but based on what I've seen, I've been fully impressed with the guy, and I hope he's not taken out of this lineup whenever the team is fully healthy.
He'll be 27 by the end of the season. He's got 73 career games in the NHL, but still a prospect. I mean, he fits into that definition just because he hasn't played a ton on the NHL level. And he is still trying to prove himself as a full-time NHL player, and he sure is doing that. So that's a good pick because no one really saw Nick Blankenburg coming preseason.
No, not at all.
He was also picked up in the offseason. These are the offseason pickups that we kind of overlooked because we were so focused on, the big three of Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea. But, I mean, this has proven to be a really great pickup by Trotz. And it's paid off big time. What about you, Boyd?
So, Wilsby, LaRue, Blankenburg, all great choices. And there may be a touch of recency with this, but how unbelievable has Spencer Stastny looked?
Yeah. Really happy to have him back. I was really
he basically,
worried.
As far as we know, he basically didn't play hockey for 3 months.
Something like that, at least. He didn't play training camp at all, so maybe closer to 4.
Yeah. Walks into Milwaukee in the middle of November, plays, half a dozen games? comes straight back to the NHL and hasn't missed a beat. He's been tremendous. You cannot sit there and tell me right now he's not the third or fourth best defenseman on the team right now.
And you look, the defensive pipeline is ridiculous right now. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, Blankenberg and Delgaizo and Stastny and Ufko and Tanner Mollendijk. I mean, it just keeps going. And then you've got guys that you can plug in when you need them. You got, Kevin Gravel is going to be in here coming up. And he played well when he's been asked to play. Isn't he the Admirals captain?
He is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just really cool to see how it's been the revolving door, the musical chairs of defensemen this year. You never know what pairings you're going to get going into a game, but got to be super pumped about just the defensive pipeline of this organization right now.
Absolutely.
And also the Preds prospect pool in general by most of the scouts, they rank at top half of the league. I'm not sure where the Athletic has them ranked. I don't know if you've seen that recently, Boyd, where they have their prospect pool ranked. But I've seen 10 to 12 range is where I usually see the Preds prospect pool ranked. So they've definitely got one of the better ones in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, in general, they have when you look across. I mean, Matthew Wood, Joachim Kemmel, Tanner Mollendijk are all kind of in that upper tier of prospects, maybe not like superstars in the making. We have a bunch of that. There are a bunch of guys who are going to play a lot of NHL games. The prospect that we probably see the least of that I might be the most excited about is Igor Surin playing in the KHL. I mean, I remember watching him just even during development camp, and he was just basically skating through people to go score goals. And, he's been playing at the KHL level, which is, scoring is down. It's just looking at the Swedish or Finnish leagues. You're not going to see guys scoring, 50, 60 goals a season. But, as someone as young as he was drafted, I might be as excited about him as I am anyone else.
All right. So there's some good stuff there with the prospect pool. Those are our burning questions. Also, I got one on X that I want to share as well. This is from Catherine. She responded. She said, "What do you predict Delgaizo's future with the team will look like? Seems like he's in the doghouse. Were you surprised Gravel got called up instead of him?" Boyd.
Yeah. I don't know if doghouse is the right word, but there's so many guys. It's hard to stand out.
That's what we're saying. Yeah, it's not so much that Delgaizo's not a good prospect. I mean, he's proven it on this level. It's just there are a lot of good choices right now for who to play, and it's hard to find an argument to bench any of these guys. I mean, you got Stastny in the mix now. You're not benching him. He's part of your team's long-term future. With the emergence of Nick Blankenberg, it has really shaken a lot of things up. I don't think that Delgaizo's played poorly, and I think he's got a future with his team, but he's kind of going to be a tweener between the AHL and the NHL. I mean, I don't know what his contract looks like. I don't know how long he's signed for it. I have to look that up. But I would like for him to obviously have a future with his team. I love Delgaizo. I think he's a good, solid player. But I just, sometimes it's just hard to find room for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking that up right now. I think he's got, if I can find it, he is a Group 6 UFA after this season. So he is 25. Given the depth of the pipeline, I wouldn't consider myself shocked if he moved on to other opportunities. If there's somewhere where he might be a little bit closer to getting a regular run at the NHL level. I mean, similar. I like Delgaizo a lot. He does a lot of things well. Skates well, handles the puck well, scrappy defensively. I mean, he made a few, fairly costly mistakes, but he has 15 NHL games to his credit. That shouldn't be shocking. So, I would like to see a world where he stays in the Nashville system and maybe they find a way to keep him around. But yeah, he's definitely kind of in the mushy middle from the Predators kind of prospect pool defensively of, there are some guys that probably just have a higher ceiling that may get more of an opportunity in the near term.
Yep. Yeah, I could see him definitely moving on to a better opportunity if it presents itself for him. All right, let's tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Game Time, the Game Time ticket app, the best place to get last-minute tickets, get the best deal. It's the ticket app that I use for all of my sporting event needs, and nothing beats a live hockey game experience. We all know that. The chill of the ice, the speed of the skaters, the players getting knocked up on the boards. I still remember my first ever hockey game way back. I think it was like year 3 or year 4 of the Predators being here. I didn't even know what icing was yet, but I remember being at that live hockey game and just taking it in. And I know we got listeners who still probably haven't been to their first hockey game. But yes, live hockey, nothing beats it. And right now, Game Time has a new feature called the Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. No one has time for that. No one has time to be searching through all those tickets. Take me to what I'm looking for. That's what people want. So with Game Time, I'm going to pull up the app right now and tell you what's going on in Nashville with Game Time. You got Vanderbilt basketball right now, which is, I think they're like third. I know Boyd's a fellow Vandy fan with myself.
Talk about Vanderbilt basketball. It's not killing you guys this year.
I've been making the joke all year with my friends. I'm like, I thought it would be a cold day in hell before Vandy was my most successful team out of the Titans, Preds, and Vandy. Vandy football.
That's right.
Vandy football was the team that delivered me a bowl win. I can't say the same thing for my Preds and my Titans right now. No. But yes, Vanderbilt basketball, you can get they're at home tomorrow to play Mississippi State, big time game. You can get tickets as low as $39. That's a pretty damn good deal to see SEC basketball in the Music City. So that's what Game Time got for you there. You got Belmont basketball starting at $20. You got All Elite Wrestling if you're into the wrestling. You got Austin. It's basketball season for sure. So you got all the local basketballs out there. And how about the Preds? Preds are trending on the Game Time app right now. You've got Saturday the 11th, their next home game. The Capitals at the Preds. I wonder why the tickets are a little higher than some of the other ones. Oh, probably because people want to see Ovechkin. You can get tickets as low as $77 on the Game Time app right now to see Alex Ovechkin play at Bridgestone Arena. You got tickets as low as $16 right now for Tuesday's home matchup against the Golden Knights. So basically my point is this: Game Time makes it super easy to find those deals. The super deals is how good it is. That's what you're looking for there. You get the best deals, and it's not just sporting events. It's concerts, it's theater, it's comedy shows. Game Time is there for you for all of your live events and ticketing needs. You got the curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. You got the super deals, the seat views before you buy, which is one of my favorite features of Game Time, is being able to see what my seats are going to look like when I get into them. It gives you a full panoramic view of the venue that you're going to be sitting in if you buy those seats. And then, of course, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and everything. So the Game Time Picks is the best feature with the curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc., all in pricing. This toggling feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, like some of those other apps. No surprise fees at the end. What you get is what you get. The seat views get a panoramic view from your seat, the lowest price guarantee, and the Game Time ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Let's do the Smashville stat of the week. I'm going to pull up J Fresh Hockey, and a lot of you know J Fresh Hockey and all of his data that he shares throughout the season. It's one of my favorites, and I like to track this throughout the season. So this is from January 5th, so yesterday, and it's all about goals scored above expected, which is really a fancy way of saying, are you scoring where you should be scoring? If you're right at 0, that means you're right where you're expected to be. If you're in the negative, that means you're not scoring in those chances. In other words, you're not finishing. And we know that's what's plagued this team, not just this season, but it plagued them last year too. Yeah. So I'm going to put it on the screen, but that's the Smashville stat of the week from Jay Fresh that really just caught my attention. And I'll put it on the screen for all our viewers, and me, Boyd, and Max can discuss. And that's all the teams ranked goal score above expected. And of course, there you have it. You got the Predators.
Golly.
You got the Predators at dead last in the league. They've been dead last for most of the season. 32nd overall, that's last. Minus 22.1 goals above expected. They are 22 goals less than what they have been expected to score. So just imagine if that number was even just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. How much different would the outlook of the season in general look like if they just had maybe 6 more points in the standings? I mean, seriously, that's like just 3 more wins that could have gone their way. What really stands out to me is the gap between 32 and 31. The next closest team to the Predators, which is 31st worst in the league, is the Boston Bruins at minus 16.8. We're talking about over 5 goals differential between the Preds and the next worst team. I mean, that is just crazy bad luck, guys. Yeah. It's bad luck, and it's not executing in the moments. And I mean, just for instance, Gus Nyquist, I hate to pick on him, but I mean, he missed a wide open net. You've seen plenty of times this year where the puck rolls on the guy's stick or the pass is just a little bit off. Or how many times have these guys hit the post this year? So, and then of course, sometimes it's just because you run into a really hot goalie and there's nothing you can do. But that hasn't happened that much, honestly. How many times have the Preds just not gotten any shots on goal in clutch moments? You know, they'll go 10, 15 minutes at a time throughout a game where they don't even get a shot on goal. So, guys, what do you think it is? Do you think it's a combination of everything, or do you think it's just bad puck luck? What do you think, Boyd?
I mean, Boyd,
you go, Max.
Max,
I mean, the way I'm thinking of it is like, you know, that's a sad. I mean, I guess someone correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have a great read on what. I mean, the way I read that is like, you're just not finished. It's not even like, oh, you're not getting. It's not even that you're not getting a chance. You're not finishing your chances right there.
Yeah. No, they're getting the chances. Yeah, they're getting the chances.
Right. And the way I've thought of it, and you know, we've talked about it. I've seen on Twitter from people. Boyd's talked about it. You know, Chad, you've talked about it too. We've talked on here as well. Is like, it seems like one of those things. It's only a matter of time before it turns around. But like, when will it turn around? And it's also, when I look at a stat like this, it makes me think like. That makes me more confident that like I'm not really for a coaching change. I don't know how a new coach makes you finish your chances. I mean, that's player execution right there.
And here's another thing before Boyd goes. Just because you're near like it doesn't if you're in the red on this list, it doesn't necessarily correlate to you being bad in the standings. For instance, you just look at it here. You got a team like the Dallas Stars. Obviously, they're performing well. They're expected to be a playoff team and even a Stanley Cup contender. They're a minus 4.5. You look at a team like the Buffalo Sabres. They're having an awful year. They're plus 10. So it really just varies all over the board on how that impacts you in the standings. But clearly, in the case of the Predators, it's why they are where they are in the standings and why they are definitely the biggest disappointment of the season in terms of what their roster is on paper.
Well, yeah, I think you're looking at a couple things. I mean, obviously there is bad luck in execution. Absolutely. You know, I would be, you know, kind of as I mentioned about the schedule in January being a little different than prior months. I think it will be interesting to revisit this in February and see how this has changed when the team has been able to practice more, you know, and just maybe feels a little more comfortable with each other. The other part of it too, and this is the one that's, always one of the challenges. Outside of Stamkos, Forsberg, Marchessault, and at least historically to a little bit lesser extent, O'Reilly, who else would you call a finisher on this team?
Right.
Yeah.
That's not engineering. That's fault. That's personnel.
That's personnel.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would like to. I would like to think that eventually Luke Evangelista becomes a better finisher. I would like that. You got some young guys that you hope that grow into that role. Obviously, LaRue, you would hope grows into that role, but I'm not going to pin it on those young players. I mean, Evangelista's got to start coming along, and then Tommy Novak, guys. I mean, I love the guy. I really do. I want it to work out for him so bad, but he is invisible out there. I forget that he's playing a lot of times. I literally had to check the starting lineup to make sure he actually is in the game for that night, because he does not pop off my screen at all anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, from an analytical standpoint, I mean, he does still look pretty good, but yeah, just the end result plays just aren't there. And boy, you look back to the 2024 trade deadline, and boy, they could have gotten a lot for him trading probably to the Rangers, and boy, that might have been.
And I was for extending at the time, but man, I mean, we got to talk. I mean, what did that Vancouver series really do a number on his confidence?
Yeah, I mean it might be. I mean, because he was not.
Because his biggest flaw is that he just can't play a physical game.
Let's say hi to Lindsay, everybody. Lindsay jumps in on YouTube, our friend, and she asks, "Is Ozzy going to be in the lineup for a while now?" I like him. Thanks for the question, Lindsay. I could see a scenario where he's up here temporarily and then he goes back to Milwaukee. I don't see him being in the lineup long term, and that's not a knock on Weisblatt. It's just he's way ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
in terms of
I mean, you're gonna get LaRue coming back from his suspension. I mean, we are still a couple weeks out for Cole Smith, but you're going to get some other guys kind of coming back into the lineup, and I would say he's probably going to be one of the first to go back down.
And he's going to be a key part of that Milwaukee Admirals team this year.
Yeah,
in terms of
they're going to want him. Yeah, they're going to want him on that top line, playing alongside Kemmel.
Poor Milwaukee just getting decimated with call-ups. Golly, I feel bad for those. They're just like, stop taking our players.
Right.
But yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think alongside the finishing, which is definitely a problem, and there are guys in the pipeline that know how to finish and have shown it at various levels. So we'll see how those players come into play. But one thing that I did notice, it was also from J Fresh Hockey today, was the month-over-month expected goal differentials.
Oh, I did see that. Go ahead and share that, though. I don't have that ready to put on the screen, but I share that.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville's still in the negative in terms of expected goal differentials month over month, but they've been trending in the it's incremental improvement each month. So they were negative 0.5 in October, negative 0.4 in November, negative 0.35 in December. They're again, and this is what we saw last season with Andrew Burnett's team. They were awful at the start of the season. And then all of a sudden, everybody figured it out. They figured out the system. They figured out how all the pieces fit together, and off they went. Do we think they're going to have an 18-game streak without losing? No.
16-2 is what that was.
Yeah, without losing in regulation. No, I mean, I don't think that's likely. But, at this point, you're really looking at table setting for next season.
Yes.
So you want to see that, if that keeps trending, if around about February or March, you're hitting a positive expected goal differential,
That'll
you'll
mark
probably see
progress.
some really different results on the ice as well.
And that'll mark some progress too. That'll mark that they're making serious progress. I wanted to share one more thing. This is from a different account, but also the analytical side of it. I found this to be very interesting. This is from NHL projection cards. This is from Nick, which I just discovered his account, and he puts out a lot of really good stuff with these projection cards. But what we're looking at on the screen here, we'll explain it for the people who are listening and not watching. You've got basically it's mapping out what the future looks like for each team, and also what if they're good or bad right now. And where they got the Predators is basically they have a good future, but they're really bad right now. So basically they're in the category that's called the rebuilders. So they're in there with like the Sabres, the Blackhawks, the Kraken are in here, the Red Wings, the Utah Hockey Club. But at least they're not down in this bottom left quadrant, which is bad now and a bad future. And some of the teams that Nick of the NHL projection cards puts here, he's got the Rangers in this category, the Islanders, the Penguins, the Senators, interestingly enough. And then you're good now and good future, which means you got the best front offices, according to him. You got the Devils, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Washington Capitals, the Minnesota Wild, and the Los Angeles Kings. So anyway, I just found this interesting to see. So at least silver lining again here, folks. We got a good future.
Yep. According to this, anyway.
So there you have it. That's been the Smashville stat of the week. So that's going to wrap it up for the Preds talk. But, Boyd covers all of Nashville sports. He's not just a one-trick pony that talks about the Preds. But we're going to give Max Greenberg the floor. This is his segment. It's Titans time. Of course, he writes for Titans Size.
Wrong finger. There's my flag right there.
He writes for. He's a contributor for Titan Sized on the Fansided Network.
Yep.
Titans just got the number 1 overall pick, and the first thing I want to pick his brain about is what are they going to do with that top pick, and if they do take a quarterback, are you taking Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
Man, I don't have a clear opinion yet, honestly. It's not obviously this draft class for the quarterbacks. There's no surefire number 1 is the thing.
Very underwhelming.
Yeah, they're really under. And Shedeur, if I personally, and this isn't. Let me emphasize right now. This is an ongoing evaluation. My answer to this question might not be the same come April. Hell, might not. It could. If I watch it, could not be the same tomorrow. It's still. But like right now, if I were to choose a quarterback, it's probably Shedeur Sanders. I think he has a lot more fit into Brian Callahan's offense than Cam Ward does. And I think Shedeur does a lot of things better than Cam Ward does in a lot of aspects that I think are pretty critical to the game. As far as what I think the Titans do with that pick, I've heard some reports out there. Teron Davenport, who is one of the high-ranking Titans media guys, I'm sure you guys both know him. Really, really solid guy, puts out good stuff all the time. He reports the Titans are, and this was before Colorado's bowl game, where Shedeur had a bad game, so maybe it's changed since then. He reported that the Titans were really high on Shedeur Sanders and not so much on Cam Ward. But then Benjamin Albright yesterday, who is usually a good NFL analyst, he puts out the Titans are high on Cam Ward. So I don't really know which way this is going to go.
They probably don't know either.
Yeah, they don't know either. And honestly, I bet my thought is, I bet they go into this draft with the thought that they're gonna do their homework on these quarterbacks. Because Lord knows Titans need a quarterback. But I also bet that if some team comes out there with the package to trade up, they're gonna listen. And in my honest perfect, if I had it just the perfect way, my honest perfect way is trade down this year, be able to draft someone like Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter with a few picks later.
And then
I'm
get a
sure
free
Travis Hunter
agent
wouldn't make it
quarterback.
down there.
And
But
then get a free agent quarterback instead.
that this year, but next year, dive into that quarterback class because that quarterback class is supposed to be much better than this one. And if you trade down this year, you'll have the assets to be able to do it and at least hurt you not as much. So I would really love to trade down, obviously, though. And obviously, if the Titans are sold on one of these quarterbacks coming up, then you take it. You don't pass on a quarterback if
you're sold on him.
But if you're not sold on him, then you don't take a quarterback.
Yeah,
it's a very fine line.
And so we pretty much in agreement that Will Levis does not need to come anywhere near the starting job next year.
No. Brian Callahan is not gambling his job next year. If he has one, I think he's going to be safe. If he has,
I think he's safe.
I think they're safe. I'm not so positive on Carthon.
I wanted to believe in Will Levis so much because I mean, and I was a big Will Levis believer early in the season. I was defending him nonstop when he did make the bad mistakes, but when you just keep doing it, he just clearly just doesn't have it.
And again,
I mean,
Will Levis might later in his career end up being a good quarterback. The Titans don't have the time right now to figure that out. They got to move forward because again, assuming that Ryan Callahan and Rand Carthon's going to be back, I assume at the very least Callahan's going to be back. Whoever's there is not going to gamble their job on Will Levis being the guy. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't. Again, to your exact point, Max. I mean, if you're not sold on a quarterback, don't take him. I mean, you can't afford another Jake Locker.
No.
Like, I mean, you just can't.
And one thing
you're actually better off, probably.
Let's. Just because you have the number one pick doesn't mean you have to take a quarterback either.
Right. So whether it's trade out of it or fill another need if you're not sold on one of the quarterbacks. I mean, if the worst thing that happens is when Kirk Cousins is inevitably cut by the Falcons, you sign him for a year just to bridge you.
Yeah.
Like, I like the Travis Hunter idea personally.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter is a literal specimen. I mean, guys like him are literally. We throw the term generational so often nowadays. Travis Hunter is the literal definition of someone who is generational.
If you can just keep putting weapons out there. I mean, this team obviously has a ton of things to fix. So
and one of my thoughts,
you can't fix it all in one draft.
Right. And one of my thoughts of Travis Hunter was that I've kind of changed over time. So we know Travis Hunter is one of those guys who plays both positions, corner and receiver. And for the longest time, I've thought, okay, no way he's going to do that in the NFL. But the more I think about it, playing both positions, it's not really one of those things that you get better at over time. It's a God-given talent to be able to do that. Travis Hunter going to the NFL, I mean, it may not be the same as my thought if Travis Hunter in the NFL is you probably develop him fully at one position, probably corner, and then use him as a utility player at receiver. But then again, what I said about Travis Hunter, you either at a certain point you either can do it what he does or you just can't.
Yeah. And then I also would love to pick your brain real quick, Max, before we get out of here, is what's going on with the owner and Amy Adams Strunk and not coming out and doing the press conference, and people are upset. Callahan said he hasn't talked to Amy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a bad look. Fans
it's not the first time she's done this either. When she fired Mike Vrabel last year, she had Rand Carthon go out and answer the questions.
I do remember that. I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
I remember that now.
Me personally, I mean, Callahan, I would venture to guess that even though Callahan has not talked to ownership, the fact that he's even doing that press conference indicates to me he's at least safe. Yeah. Carthon, not so sure of. I'd lean toward him being safe. My thought is ultimately, obviously this regime has not started off well. And if you're going to fire, I'm not opposed to firing them because it literally was one of the worst seasons in Titans history. You can't, at some point, if they're that bad, it's whatever. But here's the thing. My ultimate demand is either you fire them both or you keep them both. I don't want any of this half-measured approach where one guy's at fault, not the other. If you're down on one guy, just clean house. It's the perfect opportunity for the first overall pick. And again, none of this, just the whole thing, just the half-measured approach would bother the hell out of me. make a decision one way or the other. But it looks like right now it is trending towards both guys staying there. Again, it's hard to know with the uncertainty with how the press conference and all that went. But if both guys are indeed back next year, I'll be content in and of that itself is that you made a decision one way or the other.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you change the GM, you're probably going to end up changing the coach anyway, because the GM's going to want their own person.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, like this, start fresh if you
either clean it out or stick with the process. I mean, from my view of the Titans, I mean, I think sometimes people worry a little bit too much about what ownership is or isn't doing.
Right.
When, let's be fair, you should want more than anything, and one only needs to look down towards Dallas, of ownership staying the heck out of actual operations.
Yeah. Yes. For football operations, yes.
Especially. Yeah. I mean, even, obviously we've spent a lot of time talking about hockey. I mean, most teams, or at least most functional ones, ownership is very separated from hockey operations.
Yes, 100%.
Unless there is a singular specific decision that has to be made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think if you can, create a little stability, focus it on, the actual football operations group that has to make these decisions. And then, if you have to bridge it a little bit at certain positions, but really go in hard on offensive line, find another impact receiver, and then you got to bridge it for a year with a quarterback. Like, that's not the worst scenario, because you can really set yourself up long term. I mean, you look at the teams that are really, really great. They win on the line first, and then everything else comes out of that.
Yeah. All right. So there's still a chance that the Predators could be in the lottery. How crazy would it be if we had both teams pick number 1 overall in the same year? All right. With that said, we're getting out of here. It's been an awesome episode. Boyd, thank you so much for jumping in with us. It was last minute, but when you asked if you wanted to join, I was like, absolutely, get on here, get on board, man.
Yes, sir.
It was awesome having you, man. We'll try to get you back on in the near future. Predators at the Jets on Tuesday night. That's their next game. We'll see if they can make it 3 in a row. Until then, thanks for watching, everybody, on YouTube and Facebook and listening. And we will see everybody soon. Have a great week. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, y'all.